Some things to note. Just South African demographics for those that are watching this and are not South African or don't know the numbers. South Africa has an 80% Black African population, an 8% white population, an 8% colored population. The colored nation were from the mating, breeding, whatever you want to call, of white people, some of the Khoi and San, Amaxhosa, today maybe some of the Zulus and other black nations that created mixed race children, who then had children with mixed race children to create a colored community in South Africa, which is 8%. Tyler, who's become an international superstar, has gone on to speak about how she's proudly colored, whereas someone like Trevor Noah, who's got a white Swiss father and a black Xhosa mother, is more mixed race. It's like a first generation colored, so to speak, mixed race. And then we've got colors. And then you've got people like Warwick Stock, who sat on the Penuel show, DJ Waras, who believes that he is Zulu, even though he is also mixed race. I think he's first or second generation. 8% colored and then about 2% Indian in South Africa. King Goodwill Zwelithini, who was the king of the Zulus, who's now been succeeded by his son, Misuzulu Zwelithini, controls the Ingonyama Trust, which is the biggest parcel of land under a trust and under a king in this country. I believe the Oppenheimer family, whether through trusts, companies, and privately, own the biggest parcel of land as a family. I'm not sure of that percentage there, but you can go look that up. It includes game farms, nature reserves, etc. Ingonyama Trust has 2.8 million hectares under it. Land that is meant for the Zulu nation and the Zulu people. Of the 62 million South Africans that we have, 17 million of them live on tribal land. That's that 15% of land under trust under a king or a chief. 17 million of them live on tribal land, which is about 16 million hectares in total. The South African government has built over 3 million RDPs, which are free housing for the poor since 1994, over 3 million. At an average of 3 people per house, that's 9 million, maybe 10 million people that have been given housing. And you can imagine these RDPs sit on land. And as the current law stands, if you get an RDP house, you can't sell it within 8 years. After 8 years, you get the title deed and it becomes yours, the house, with that small piece of land that it sits on. So that becomes a way that the government has given land to people as well. Going back to the demographics. 80% black, 8% white, 8% colored, 2% Indian. When we look at urban land, in urban spaces, of which I think it's less than 1% of total land. 49% white owned, almost 50%, that is owned by 8% of the population. 30% black owned by people that are 80% of the population. 8% Indian, 8% colored. The colors in urban land are well represented. 8% of the population, 8% of ownership under urban land, which is about 722,000 hectares. The Indians are overrepresented. They are 2% of the population, 8% land ownership. Black people are 80% but own 30% of urban land. White people are 8% but own close to 50% of the land. That's urban land, your residential spaces. You can see there aren't really that many or that much land in it at least. Farmland, which I referenced earlier, at 37 million hectares, according to the land audit. 72% white owned by an 8% white demographic, 72%. Coloreds, being 8% of the population, own 15% of farmland. Indians at 2% of the population own 5% of farmland. And black people at 80% of the population own 3% of farmland, which is 37 million hectares.